Okay, so with this video we're going to go through factoring trinomials, and really here we're just kind of looking for what we would refer to as type 1 trinomials. So factoring trinomials is the opposite of expanding a binomial. So aka it's this FOIL method, and if you maybe haven't heard FOIL before, can't remember it, all it stands for is how we multiply our binomial terms. It's the first two terms get multiplied, then the outside terms get multiplied, then the inside terms get multiplied, and then the last terms get multiplied. And so, for instance, here, if we were to take a look at this one, we'd have, there's your FOIL, so your f, your first two terms get multiplied, that gives us x squared. Then we have your outside terms getting multiplied next. So your outside terms, your x and your 3, they're outside on the outer edges of your two binomial terms. So in this case, x times 3 would give me 3x. And then I would take a look at my inside terms here. So maybe we'll kind of go just like this. Oh. And then my inside terms would be 2 times x would be 2x. And then my last term would be 2 times 3, which would just give me plus 6. And then after that, you combine any like terms together. In this case, I have a 3x and a 2x that are the same. They share the same variable, so then I can combine 3x and 2x and get my 5x. And so I'd have x squared plus 5x plus 6 being the expansion to these binomial terms. So to factor to a trinomial, you have to ask yourself the following question. So basically, you're trying to say, because remember now what we're doing is we're trying to go backwards, right? We're trying to see how can I get from here, x squared plus 5x plus 6, back to x plus 2x plus 3. So it's kind of like we're undoing FOIL. So we have to ask ourselves kind of the following question. What two numbers, positive or negative, multiply to give me the last term, and those same two numbers to give the middle coefficient or the middle term? So we're going to go through an example, x squared plus 8x plus 12. So what two numbers, positive or negative, multiply to give me 12 and add to give 8? So what two numbers multiply to give 12 to give the last term, and those same two numbers are going to multiply to give 8. And so the number that's going to multiply, if I start looking for multiples of 12, I've got 1 and 12, but I can't make those add to make 8. I've got 2 and 6, okay, and 2 plus 6 does give me 8, so there's my option. And 4 and 3, where 4 and 3 make 7, which doesn't work. So really, 2 and 6 is my option here. And so how would I then handle the rest of it? So I would go through and take, okay, I know 2 and 6 are my factors. So I'd have my binomial term. I'm going to open up two sets of brackets, okay, because I have a trinomial that I'm trying to get into two binomials. Okay, or I'm trying to break them apart. I'm basically undoing FOIL. So in this next one, we figured out that 2 and 6 are going to multiply to make 12, and they're going to add to make 8. So we're going to take our first term, that x squared, and we're going to write it first, because when we do FOIL, x times x is going to give us x squared. And then we're going to take our numbers that have the signs with them. In this case, they're both positive, and we're just going to add those in, x plus 2 and x plus 6. And then really from there, we are done. That's our factored form for our trinomial. But we can also check our answer by expanding it, and this should give you the question that we started with. So in this case, if I wanted to check this out and see if it worked, I'd have my first term, which in this case is going to be x times x. And so I'm going to get x squared. I'd have my outside terms, which are going to be x and 6, so that's going to be 6x. I'm going to have my inside terms, which are 2 and x, which are going to give me 2x. And then I have my last term, which is 2 times 6, which gives me 12. I combine my like terms together, and then I can check and see if I'm on the right track. X squared plus 8x plus 12. Take a look back to our beginning part, and sure enough, I get the exact same thing that we started with. So really, when we're doing these trinomial terms, all we're doing is breaking them apart into two sets of brackets, and then we can use FOIL to kind of check and see that we have the right answer. So, as a little bit of practice here, I'll get you to factor a couple of problems out. So I have x squared minus 8x plus 12. We have x squared minus 4x minus 12. And then we have 2x squared plus 8x minus 24 to go through. And where there's a little bit of a note for this one saying sometimes you need to factor twice using different methods. So I'll get you to try each one and see how you do, and then come back when you're ready to go through the answer for it. Alright, so with this one, it's the same setup as before, two things that multiply to give you the last digit, which in this case is a positive 12. And then we're looking for the same two numbers in this case to add to give me negative 8. So we actually came up with our factors of 12 before and added to 8, and we figured out 6 and 2 would work. But I need this time for it to come out to be negative 8 when I add it together. So how can I get around to do that part? Well, both terms are going to need to be negative to make this work, because a negative times a negative is a positive, so negative 6 times negative 2 is positive 12, that still works. And negative 6 plus negative 2 gives me negative 8, so that one works as well. So, if I were to factor this out, I'd have two x terms, and then again, I'm going to write my numbers in with the right signs here, minus 6x minus 2. And I could go through the same FOIL step here and check to verify. I'd have my first two terms together, x times x is x squared. I'd have my outside terms together, which is going to be minus 2x. I'd have my inside terms together, which is going to be minus 6x. And then I have my last terms together, which is plus 12. Then when I combine my middle two terms together, minus 2x minus 6x is minus 8x plus 12. And then I can verify that that's where I started. In my next one, I'm factoring out x squared minus 4x minus 12. So again, I'm looking to see what two things can multiply in this case to give me negative 12, and those same two numbers are going to add to give me negative 4. And so I'm going to start, I've got my brackets, I know my x's are going to come first, and then I'm going to start to look here, okay, what can I think of that can multiply to give me negative 12, and then those same two numbers will add to give me 4, negative 4. So we had 1 and 12, we had 2 and 6, and then we had 3 and 4. And so if I take a look here, it looks like 2 and 6 are going to satisfy that condition for me, where the bigger number has to carry the negative because I have negative 4 when I add them together. So in this case, I'm going to have negative 6 and 2, and then negative 6 times 2 will give me negative 12. Now it doesn't matter which place you put the negative 6 or the 2 in here because we're multiplying them together anyway. So x minus 6 and x plus 2. And so if I were to go through and verify again, I could verify this step and make sure that I have the right answer, because I could do my first two terms, x squared, my outside terms plus 2x, my inside term minus 6x, and then my last term minus 12. And then by combining my middle two terms together, I have a positive 2x minus a 6x is minus 4x minus 12. And then I can check and see that I'm on the right track. Now here, and again, if you haven't tried this, I encourage that you pause the video and give it a try. It says sometimes you'll need to factor twice using different methods. So in this case, I have 2x squared plus 8x minus 24. Now, the first thing that you should always try to think about is, do I have a common factor? Is there something in common here I can take out? And from our first video on common factoring, when we look at all these terms, the thing that pops out here when I see it, it looks like there's a 2 in common in every term. And so that's the first place I'm going to start, is I'm going to take that 2, I'm going to common factor it out, and I'm going to get x squared plus 8 divided by 2 is 4x, and 24 divided by 2 is 12. And so now I have this trinomial that's kind of sneakily hidden inside of this, this factor. So by factoring out a 2, now I can see, okay, I've done this problem, and I can kind of figure out what this problem looks like. So now I've got the same thing we had set up before, two things that multiply to give you negative 12, and those same two things are going to add together to give you positive 4. And we did a question just like this above, where we had negative 4 though, and then we have positive 4 this time. So that tells me that my signs just need to switch, and I should be okay with solving this. So now that 2 still stays in the front, but now I'm going to open up my two brackets just like I did before, and I just like putting these square brackets outside just to say that that 2 is kind of separated from the rest of it. So I'm going to treat this just like I did the other ones. I've got my two x's to start. I have an x plus 6 and then an x minus 2. And again, that would be my final answer. I could even get rid of the square brackets if I wanted to at this point and just say that I really just have this as an expression, x plus 6, x minus 2. And then now what I can do with that, really if I want to verify, is to go through the whole verification step just to make sure that I have the right answer. So in this case, I would treat the 2 like it was on the outside. I wouldn't touch it right away. I do it at the end. And I would multiply just what's inside here, which is kind of why the square brackets make sense with this part, especially when you were to go through and do any verifying. So if I were to multiply the stuff inside the brackets first, I'd have x squared, and then my outside terms would give me minus 2x. My inside terms would give me plus 6x, and then my last two terms would give me minus 12. I would combine my inside terms together, plus 4x minus 12, and then I could multiply that 2 in to every single term. Remember, because the 2 is going to multiply all the terms because it's outside the bracket. And so then I could say, okay, I've got 2x plus 8, 2x squared plus 8x minus 24. Does that match up with what I started with? And yes, it does. So I know that we have our two factors that were 2x plus 6 and x minus 2. So hopefully that makes a little bit of sense when you go through to see easy trinomial problems. So I've got a couple here for you to try. Okay, so try the following 4 questions out. And then basically when you're done, come back and we'll go through the solutions for them. Alright, so our first one, we have x squared minus 6x minus 27, and hopefully you're taking a look and you're seeing with 27 what two things can multiply to give you negative 27, and those same two numbers are going to add together to give you negative 6. And so when I think of my multiples of 27, 9 and 3 come in mind, which gives me x minus 9 and x plus 3. My next one, again, I'm trying to think of what two things can multiply to give me 25, and those same two things can add to give me negative 10. And so in this case, it looks like 5 and 5 would work. And so if I check my answer, notice how I've got a minus 5 and a minus 5 because I have to have the same sign, or I could actually combine them together and just call it a minus 5 squared. In my next one, this one was one of the, I guess, trickier ones that are here because it has a common factor of 3 that I could take out of each one. And then if I take out that 3, really what I'm left with is a squared plus 3a plus 2. And when I think of multiples of 2, there's only 1, and it's 2 and 1. So 3 and then a plus 1 and a plus 2. And then when I think about my last one, two things that multiply to give me negative 30. And those same two numbers are going to add together to give me negative 1. So two numbers that are really close together to make 30 would be 6 and 5, and then I just have to get the sign in the right spot. So x minus 6 and x plus 5. So hopefully that is a good intro to go through trinomial terms, how to factor them when the value of the a term is either 1 or you can make a common factor for it, and then basically just showing how it's the opposite of the FOIL method. So let me know if you have any questions.